Hello, I am so glad to be recording and sharing this video with you today. And I'm going to walk you through my entire coaching system from top to bottom and show you how we can create authentic, beautiful, and effective transformations. So, there are two primary components to this system. We have waking up, which is basically the meditation, the understanding your true nature, the metacognition, the understanding your mind and how it works is that portion of the work. Then we have the cleaning up. And this is let's call it the therapy, the shadow work, the trauma healing, whatever name you'd like to give to that side of the work. That's the cleaning up. There's actually a kind of a secret hidden third one called growing up, which is about developmental psychology. But this is actually better introduced at a slightly later stage. It just creates a healthier space for transformation. And when we wake up, when we clean up, the growing up happens automatically. So I'm sure you've heard of an enlightened monk or an enlightened nun who's a teacher with thousands of students who has all these scandals. They have abuse scandals, or they've done their students wrong, or they've stolen a car, or whatever they've done. And that's because they haven't done their cleaning up. They've done the meditation and they have access to these beautiful states, but they still have shadow. They still might have a younger part of themselves, which is 12 years old, which sometimes takes over. They might not understand reciprocity or respect or ethics. So that's why when you wake up, you also need to do your cleaning up. And now if you only do your cleaning up, you may be psychologically healthy, but you won't have access to these beautiful luminous states. You'll never transcend yourself. And this is very useful. This just feels amazing. And it makes your cleaning up even better, even more powerful. And so if you only do cleaning up, yes, you may be psychologically healthy, but you'll be missing out on all these amazing, luminous, beautiful states of being. You'll never transcend the self. As well as that, the waking up makes the cleaning up so much easier. They're extremely synergistic and cohesive. They basically merge into one path in the more advanced stages. So we need the waking up and we need the cleaning up. When we do our sessions together, it'll probably be about 80% of therapy and working with your mind, and maybe 10-20% of the meditation guidance. And it's really personalized. It depends how much you want to do, whether you want to do 10 minutes a day of meditation or 60 minutes a day. I strongly recommend my clients have a daily meditation practice because it's just absolutely life-changing. There's no real better way to describe it. But of course, some people don't like it, some people love it. So it really depends on what you want. So let's focus on the therapy for a second. The main base operating principle I use is creating a space of unconditional love and acceptance. Now, there are actual whole therapy systems which are just this. You can look up person-centered therapy and Rogerian therapy. These therapy systems literally just hold a space of love and let the client basically heal themselves. Now, I don't do that, but I use this space of unconditional love as the base for our work. This space of unconditional love and acceptance for all of you, all of your parts, and anything that might come up. And this is absolutely necessary for me. If your therapist isn't doing this intentionally, then I think they're really missing out. Another way to look at this is that the base core human desires are safety, love, and attention. And holding this space kind of meets those right at the depth, right at the core need, which makes everything else on top much easier, much calmer, and much quicker too. Once we have this set up, we then begin to delve into the unconscious mind. This isn't crazy. I'm not going to hypnotize you and make you fall asleep or swing a clock in front of your face. It'll just look like a normal conversation. But this part is obviously very important because your unconscious mind holds the power to create your own personal hell or your own personal heaven. And we'll start looking deeper in whatever direction you feel like would serve you. So maybe it's to do with your mind, your emotions, your relationships, or some habits like addiction, self-sabotage. Whatever serves you, whatever you need, whatever is causing you suffering in your life, that's the direction we'll go. And while we do this, it's absolutely vital we use something called clean language. Many therapists don't know about this, and it's borderline catastrophic because this allows for three things. It allows for the authentic emergence of everything in your consciousness to arise without my projections, without my assumptions, without my distortions. And this basically means what comes up for you is much more pure, it's much more accurate, and it's got nothing to do with me. These sessions are not about me at all. Most of the time, I'll just be asking you questions to understand. What this also allows to happen is that the change happens from the core, the root upwards. It's not me telling you what to do. It's not forced upon you. So for example, maybe you're not feeling good enough. Yes, you can tell yourself, no, I am good enough, and you can fight with that for the rest of your life. Or you can go to the core seed, you can let it arise, you can let it dissolve, and those feelings of not feeling good enough will never arise again, and something new will naturally come in and take its place. So clean language is almost as important as this space of unconditional love, actually. I just cannot emphasize that enough. This isn't like a teacher trainings. I do train coaches if you're interested in that, but yeah, I'm just passionate about clean language because it changed my work completely, and completely for the better in every possible way. And I should mention, this is the main problem with doing therapy with AI. AI constantly projects onto you, and this is damaging for your consciousness. I can explain more inside a session if you're interested in that, but for now we'll move on. So from here, what I like to do is once we start delving into your unconscious mind, I use a range of modalities to explore deepest. So here are the 8 types of modality, and every form of therapy actually comes under one of these 8. So maybe we'll do CBT, that's behavioral and cognitive. Maybe we'll do some somatic experiencing. Maybe we'll do some symbolic restructuring like Carl Jung or Fritz Perls would do. We can do whatever we want. And each of these systems has an advantage and a limitation. They have their own use cases, and we can choose whichever one is working best for you based on your problem, based on your symptoms, and based on your consciousness. And I'll most likely be weaving in and out of all 8 types of therapy to create the most beautiful and effective and authentic transformation for you. So once we're at this point, we need to understand the neuroscience of brain and beliefs. So we have 3 types of memory. We have procedural, episodic, and semantic. Episodic is the easiest one to start. This is the episodes of your memory, like a TV show. Like you remember going to the beach, or you remember going to the shops, or you remember the actual events that happened. This is actually where most traditional therapists get caught. They're so focused on the episodic memory, when the real juice, the real power is in the semantic memory. These are the things we learn. These are the learnings we took on. So maybe you went in the sea and something bad happened. You got hit by a wave, or you saw a shark or something. And in that moment of stress, you learned that the sea is unsafe. Now you have this seemingly irrational fear of the sea for the rest of your life. That would be the semantic memory. And this is much more important than the episodic memory. Although the episodic memory can be used to access the semantic memory even clearer. Then we finally have procedural memory. This is like when you ride a bike. You just know how to do it without thought. You can just do it kind of unconsciously. That's procedural memory. And then from here, we also have memory, learning, and prediction. And this is the way the brain works. You have the memory, you make the learning, and then from then on, you create these predictions. So you're predicting that the sea is dangerous because a shark's going to appear. But, for example, if you're 7 or 8 years old, if you create a learning at this age and it gets frozen, maybe due to trauma or due to stress or whatever it is, then you may be 30 years old, but you have this 8-year-old's level of intelligence when it comes to being scared of the sea, right? It creates all these splits in your ego, in your consciousness. And so when we understand this model of brain and beliefs, it allows us to work with the brain and beliefs extremely effectively, because this is scientifically proven. I can send you 100 scientific papers where this is peer reviewed. And when we understand the neuroscience on this, we can understand how to reactivate this learning, these predictions, and change them at the core, at the root, forever. There is 0 chance of relapse when this is done correctly. It's a true permanent change, which is just absolutely paradigm shifting in the field of therapy. So maybe I can give you an example of a recent session I had which maps this out. So I have a client and we were working on something else, but in the background we had these reoccurring symptoms of feeling like a failure, and it would flare up in her relationships and it would flare up at work when her boss would get mad at her. And so we were monitoring that while we dove into some other stuff. And then one day she mentioned she had a nightmare the session before our call. And I had a good feeling, so I asked her about the nightmare. And she mentioned there were all these maggots in her nightmare. So we went into some Carl Jungian style dream work, some symbolic dream work. And we investigated. And basically by the end we found out that these maggots represented the part of herself which is telling herself she's a failure. So we found the learning, and from there we could find the episodic memory. So she actually found the moment that she took this on. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but she found the memory where this learning took place. And now we have so much to work with. And we actually haven't had a session since then, so that's as far as we've got. But from here, we can basically go through this neuroscientific process to unlearn the learning. And when we do this, these symptoms of feeling like a failure will never arise again. It will be a pure, permanent, total transformation. And it's the most incredible process I've ever found. And I'm just really excited to share it with anybody else who's interested. So that's basically a quick overview of how the therapeutic system works. There's a whole lot more detail I can go into, but I want to keep this kind of short if I can. The other part is the meditation. So there's two main types of meditation I like to teach. And the first one is centered around love. And this is an absolutely beautiful meditation taught to me by an enlightened Buddhist nun. And this allows for two really good benefits. Firstly, you basically get access to love, peace and equanimity on command, which is just as good as it sounds. Like, you can basically sit in a room alone for an hour and just send yourself love. So you basically unlock happiness and self-love and peace. This makes everything easier because you have the equanimity, and you have the self-love. But not only that, but it also trains your concentration. And this is important for a couple reasons. Because firstly in life, to be focused, whether you just want to be present with your friends and your family in a moment, or just working, you want to be focused and you want to make the most of your time, make the most of this limited life that we have. And so when we do this actually creates the perfect conditions for you to start doing your own cleaning up work. So my goal, my kind of secret goal with this work, is to slowly teach you the systems yourself so that you can eventually leave me and just be fully self-sufficient. I mean, I still have coaches and teachers. Some of my coaches, I'm sure they all have coaches and teachers. So for the more tricky, for the more deeper things, we still have blind spots, and it's still useful to have someone reflect back to us. But most of the things I want you to be able to handle on your own. I want you to be self-sufficient. So this space of unconditional love and the concentration and mindfulness to track your thoughts and your thinking, it's doing this meditation is really life-changing. And those are the two benefits that I'm looking for. Now, a little bit later on in the path, when I sense that your consciousness is ready, I like to introduce some Tibetan Buddhist shunyata meditations. And these are extremely powerful. And I don't want to speak about them too much, just because it's not helpful. But you can get a real sense of your true nature. You can start looking into your non-duality. You can have these real, beautiful, crazy, luminous, radiant states that are just beyond anything you could ever imagine. But it's really better to not speak about those just yet. So we'll leave that there. So together, these two elements, the therapeutic transformation and the meditative awakening, create this unified path of healing, self-realization and liberation. And the end result is that you basically feel deeply safe, you feel deeply at peace, you feel deeply loved, and you feel deeply at home within yourself and within the world. And it's the most beautiful journey I've ever been on. And I just love to help anybody else who's interested in this work to do it too. So that's my system. I hope it made sense. I left a lot out because I don't want to be here for an hour, and I'm sure you don't want to be here for an hour, but I'm happy to expand on any parts of it. If you have any questions, just message me wherever you see this video, and that's about everything. So I hope you have a lovely day, and hopefully we can stay in touch. Bye.